DG in the house. Minnesota in the house. You know I'm coming tonight, man. Some good info tonight. I think tonight is going to clear up a lot of discrepancies. We'll talk about a couple of things. I want to, hey D, let me ask you a question. What do you think about that Amber Geiger situation? I want to kind of get into that. I had one of the family members in the garden asked me about Amber Geiger and that situation. And and family, you all know what I'm talking about. The Amber Geiger situation is it's a cop here in Texas who went into someone else's apartment and killed an Afro-melanated man. She's a Caucasian cop, and she got off work and she went into someone else's apartment that she thought was her apartment. And when she walked into the apartment, she assumed there was a stranger in her apartment and she shot the guy and killed him. When in actuality, she went into the wrong apartment. Now, I don't know about you guys out there, but first of all, my doors are locked right now. And, for someone just walking and for you to walk into someone else's apartment, now I ain't gonna lie. There have been situations where, when I was in college, coming home from practice and whatnot and everything, I may, go to the wrong dorm room, but that was like right next door. Oh, damn, it's not my dorm room. So I go to the dorm room, my correct dorm room. I'm not walking into someone else's dorm room because normally everyone locks their doors. So we have the situation where, like I say, DJ, yeah, they may convict her. The fact that there's a maid in that particular situation trips me out. We got to think about this for a minute. Exactly. Come on. You walk into someone else's apartment. You thought it was your apartment, and you don't automatically recognize the surrounding. This is a person that's a cop. This is a person that allegedly had cognitive skills, that was necessary to be a police officer. So, because you can't even be in that particular job unless you pass psychological profile backgrounds of the like. You dig? Jasmine. So, this is really crazy, for people to even be like having a second thought about this. This is crazy. You walk into someone else's apartment that you thought was yours and you kill somebody, you pull your gun out and you shoot him. He's in his own apartment. Family, let me tell you something. I've been around a long time. And I can tell you this, that's bogus. The whole story is bogus. That's a situation that only she and unfortunately the brother that was killed knows. You walked into the apartment or did you have a key? You did? So, family, I don't want to pontificate on that too long, but I just thought that was kind of crazy. So, and there's a trial going on right now. And like I said, that's not in the title, but I wanted to address that just in case one family members that asked me to address that, coming to the garden. I personally don't feel that that's a situation that's there's something more to that. You're not just walking into someone else's apartment and that's your story. Oh, I thought it was my apartment. I thought somebody broke into my apartment. He didn't attack you. He wasn't threatening. You pull your gun out in someone else's apartment and you shoot him. Come on, man. There's a lot of different shows that's on the television that talks about these type of stories. And it's just something that I think we probably want to kind of look more into because, see, these can be kind of diversionary tactics. The fact that this story, if it don't make sense, you got to kind of have some ambivalence about it. You dig? A gun involved. They talking about, gun laws and changing gun laws. So when things like this happen, you really got to kind of question the validity of the substance. See, family, what happens is so many times when you see a lot of these type of stories, you expect to just believe everything at face value, opposed to using your analytical thinking and sort these things out. That story alone, come on, family. She a cop. That's what they do. They pretty much surveil. They very meticulous when they go to certain areas. They don't just go. I used to be a firefighter and a paramedic, so I already know that there's a certain level of what they call safety first. That not only firefighters and paramedics make sure they follow, but cops especially. Cops especially because one, they have a weapon, so they have to always be cognitive of of their surroundings, right? So you trying to tell me this chick said she just walked into a wrong apartment that she thought was hers? Huh? The same address that's on your driver's license. Come on, man. So these type of stories, family, just don't give too much credence, and let's really look at the real news. And see, the real news is: do you really understand the tax uh, brackets, and do you feel the tax brackets are fair? Okay, because see, right now, the highest tax brackets is 38%. And what does that mean? Okay, what that means is you have a bracket of taxes. It's a progressive tax bracket where you have 10%, 12%, 14%, 22%, 28%, 32%, and then I think it tops off at 38%. But a lot of people think that when they look at how much they make, that's where they fit in. And let me give you an example. Uh, you make $84,000 a year. Then in the tax bracket, if you look at the 2018 tax bracket, family, it tells you where that particular number uh, falls into. And so you may think that, oh man, I make $84,000, then I'm in a 22% tax bracket. That's not true. That's not how the marginal tax uh, rate works. Okay. And so it's like the first $10,000 you make, you tax 10%. Everybody. See, this isn't like, certain people tax certain things and whatnot. No. Hey, Deborah. And yes, Jasmine. The recession, but remember, it's not going to come until after the election. You dig? I mean, because, Trump has been touting this false, fake economy throughout his duration as president. There's nothing going to happen right now because remember, if you're looking at the stock market, it's a propped up stock market. Okay. And how do I know that? Because there's been more companies buying their own stocks back in the months of August and September than in the history of the stock market. Why? Because they have to buy their own stock so that the investors can think that the market is still viable. But see, when you know what I know and know that the market capitalization of GDP is way over 100%, and that the bond market is inverted, and that we know that it's like $4 trillion in consumer debt, that tells you right there that yes, a recession is coming. But they can only kind of prop up the stock market and the job market. They can prop that up on the television to kind of keep people or kind of keep the investors at bay. Because see, this whole notion of what the Dow Jones did this or the S&P 500 did this, that's garbage. It's individuals that have stocks in these particular companies that's trying to decide whether or not it's a good idea to keep their stock or sell it. And when they feel what they know that a lot of the big insiders are going to be buying or selling all their stock, then what's going to happen? Then they're going to sell theirs too. And so everybody going to sell it. That's all. You remember, 84% of Americans, don't invest, in the stock market and in equities and the commodities market. So it's only a small group of people that this actually is affected. Okay. And so when you add in this whole algorithmic type of trading where, they're able to trade millions of shares of stock at one time. I mean, little fellas like us, yes, we can be rich, relatively speaking, but to get to that level, come on, man, it ain't happening because the game is shifted where, you know, it's generational. It's it's rigged. Okay. Oh, Jasmine, I beg to differ. Trump is a horrible businessman. Mm. This is a guy that had been bankrupt like 4 or 5 times, right? Was able to get a TV show called The Apprentice, but it became one of the top shows, number one shows on TV for years. Parlayed that into the presidency and still president. But was able to, as president, because remember, presidents are selected, not elected, even though people think they are. I mean, they tell you that by letting you know about an electoral college. And how many people really understand what an electoral college does and what it means? You did. So that tells you right there that, the popular vote don't matter. How cognitively dissonant do we have to be to even accept that notion? If it's 50 million people in one state, that's still 50 million Americans, right? So just because you have, 12,000 people in North Dakota, 5,000 people in Iowa, they get the same voting scale as 50 million people over here. That don't make sense. Because by that notion, you've been penalized for being where everything is. You did? So it's hard that once you wake up and understand all this stuff is garbage, it's frustrating, right? But it's also refreshing because you get to see through the bull and understand that a lot of things that they put on the television, they don't want you to know about. That's why they give you the NFL, the NBA, entertainers, social media, Facebook, all that stuff. And don't you think it's quite interesting that on Facebook they'll have something trending that's totally immoral, right? But then we have a cat that's trying to drop food for thought and give knowledge out there for people that can be helpful. The numbers get all of a sudden contracted. So it's a weird type of situation. Okay. But I'm glad you guys are in the garden, because you're in the garden, it means you're conscious. And so if you just joining me, family, if you're just watching me, I'm talking about, and I asked the question, is the tax rate fair? And do you understand it? All right. I kind of went off on a tangent about Amber Guyger because I want to address this situation, because a lot of things that's on the television, family, are what they call diversions, or what they call misinformation, or what they call misleading, or trying to lead you to a different directive or a different narrative. Remember, they're talking about gun laws, and I think there's only a group of people that they want to take guns, not everybody else. Okay, but I digress. Back to is the tax rate fair? Family, like I said, understanding the tax rate, the marginal tax rate, you have to understand that when President Trump passed this new tax bill in 2018, all right, it's the same tax law, a tax bill that Bush passed and that Ronald Reagan passed. Okay, the whole shift in wealth, where the rich, really, really rich, was able to keep their wealth, was when in 1984 Ronald Reagan passed a new tax law, which made the tax rates at a max 38%. See, back in the 70s, the tax rate got all the way up to 70%. And I'm explaining what I mean by that. In the 50s, it got all the way up to 91%. All right? Now, you may ask, what does that mean? What that means is this, family. In the 70s, the 1970s, anybody that made $200,000, okay, they was taxed at 37%. But anything, they was taxed at anything over $200,000 was taxed at 70%. Meaning, at $200,000, every month, every amount of income that you earned over $200,000 was taxed at 70%. And in the 50s, it was taxed at 91%. So you got to understand that a lot of rich people were very, very uncomfortable and not happy with that marginal tax rate scale. Okay, so what happened was When Ronald Reagan became president, he passed a new tax law with the help of Congress, because remember, Congress makes the laws, the president executes the laws, all right, and the judicial system interprets the laws. So when Ronald Reagan was in office, the tax rate went all the way down to 38%. So anybody making over $200,000, you paid the same amount of money, whether you made $20,000 or $20 million. You paid the same 38% income tax, right? So even today, that tax rate still applies. Trump's tax rate has it maxed out at 38%. So I think over anything over $400,000 is only 38%. So if you make $400,000, you pay 38%. Marginal, that is, okay? Because remember, you have to go from the first $10,000 is taxed 10%, and then and the next $50,000 is taxed 22%, and so on and so forth. You're not just being taxed. Like I said, if you make $4 million, you're not just being taxed 38% of that $4 million. It's marginal. Okay, and I'm gonna come back with the whiteboard so I can show that to you guys. But definitely do your research on that so you can understand what it means by having a marginal tax rate, a progressive tax rate, because you're not in a 22% tax bracket. That doesn't exist. What it means is in a 22% tax bracket, those making $38,000 to $60,000, I think, anything over that is 22%. Okay. So let's say if somebody's making $20,000, they only tax 10% that first $10,000, right? And then after that, it's taxed 12%. So it's a little confusing, family, but I'm gonna have to come back with the whiteboard. But nevertheless, the whole point of that particular scenario is to tell you that the tax rate is 38%. Okay, so anybody making over, $1 million, $20 million, it doesn't matter. You max out at 38%. Anything over $400,000 is only 38%. Okay, so is that fair or not? Why do we even take taxes? Why do the government even take taxes? They tax us because they want to get money for different governmental programs. All right, and these governmental programs supposed to go to those that are less fortunate, the lower income families. You did? So do you agree with that or no? All right. And no, Jasmine, this economy is not booming. I mean, when you have, 5 million senior citizens living in poverty, and I don't know if you guys heard about the situation in California. And in California, the homeless situation, I mean, is it me? But if you're watching the television, family, you know that right now they want to impeach Trump because they said Trump had a conversation with Ukraine and threatened a country called Ukraine in the Eastern Europe, threatened them that if they didn't do something, he was going to take monies away from them or stop money to going to them. Now, my point is this. You have billions of dollars going to all these other countries on what they call foreign aid or foreign monies going to these different countries. Of course, billions of dollars go to Israel, Ukraine, a lot of countries in Africa, all over the world. If you look at, it's probably over $70 billion of foreign aid goes overseas. How can you justify that when you have a homeless situation in California like it is? And if you look at Los Angeles and San Francisco, come on, man, that is ridiculous. In Los Angeles, they got Skid Row, where it's multiple blocks of people living on the streets in tents. And then in San Francisco, the Department of Transportation in San Francisco just allowed homeowners to put boulders, rocks in front of their homes on the sidewalk to prevent the homeless from building tents in front of their homes. Now, my question is this. Shouldn't the government, instead of sending money overseas, shouldn't they be doing something to help the homeless and help those that are misfortunate over here? I mean, we have an opioid epidemic. We have 5 million senior citizens that are living in poverty. I mean, if you look at the number of kids in Texas and in America that are hungry, underfed, the veterans, the many veterans, and I told you guys, I mean, it was like 20 veterans a day commit suicide, those that are coming from uh, the Middle East wars and World War and the Desert Storm wars from the PTSD. The number of those guys that are committing suicide is bad. You dig? So, I mean, to me, I think it's kind of crazy that you will have a situation where the government, and like I said, I don't know, I probably get buffered or, they probably get these numbers contracted, but it's just real. Because once your third eye is open, I mean, you can't close it back. If you're an empath, you can't stop feeling this energy and knowing what's going on. The numbers don't lie, family. If the government tells you that by 2034, Social Security may be insolvent, but every month and 2 weeks you get your check, you're seeing FICA taxes taking out your check, and you're being told that it may not be there. What is that? And then the homeless situation, the veteran situation, but then on the television, they talk about how the economy is the best economy it's ever been. The African American unemployment rate is lowest it's been in 50 years. How can you believe that? And they tell you there's something called light years, or they tell you that there are bones, or there's something called evolution from millions of years ago. Come on, man. That tell you right there that a lot of stuff is bogus. You have to look at things from a different perspective. There's no way in a this type of economy, this type of government, this type of society, democracy, right? We send millions and millions of dollars overseas for foreign aid, but in your own country, in the richest state in America, in California, in some of the richest cities in America, you have a homeless situation like that. It's $1.5 trillion budget, $760 billion of it goes to the military, and we're not even at war. And nobody said nothing. And the congressmen and the people running for president, come on, man. I'm just saying, a lot of stuff, we gotta, insurance premiums have gone up like 55% in the last 10 years, right? But wages only went up 26%. There's a discrepancy. Okay? Your property taxes in your homes are going up. They saying your property value is going up, but you're looking at your home like, wait a minute, how? I've been living in this house the whole year. How you gonna tell me my property value has went up and I'm still living here and I don't remember putting more value into the house? But you're gonna tell me my property value that went up $50,000, so that means I have to pay more in property taxes with no validation? Come on, man. They in the streets in Hong Kong because they can't have freedom of speech. But over here, we cool. Let them take all our money. Let them go in wrong apartments and shoot people. And then they on trial and may get convicted. Are you serious? When just 50 years ago, a Caucasian lady, all she had to do was just say a black man looked at her and he was lynched or put in prison. But now you have a Caucasian lady walk into an Afro-melanated man's apartment, shoot him in cold blood and say, oh, I thought that was my apartment. Huh? And she may be convicted? Just food for thought, family. Food for thought. Like I said, family, the marginal tax rate is somewhat ambiguous. It's not what you think. If you make $80,000 a year, you're not in the 22 or 24% tax bracket. You're not paying 22% of your money. You have to make sure you go from 0 to 10, and then 10 to 28, and then 28 to 38. That's how you calculate your taxes on a marginal basis. And then once you figure that out, do the calculations, and then you can see your average, your annual tax rate. I promise you, it's going to be different than the marginal rate that you think you are. And that's the thing that wealthy people know that a lot of people don't understand, and we just let people just take our money. And yes, Jasmine, Emmett Till was but the whole Emmett Till situation to me was one of those situations where Emmett Till, yes, but what about the other hundreds that didn't get that type of publicity? Because I promise you, it was a lot more than that. You did. So, still want to come back with a little news, family. Do you think the tax rate is fair? Like I say, if you're in the garden, you're gonna be building this well pretty soon because once the economy crashes, and it will crash, because we're gonna have a pretty bad recession. And I'm saying that, family, because I've done the research. I'm looking at the mortgages. I'm looking at all those subprime mortgages. I'm looking at all the mortgage-backed assets that a lot of these shadow banks have purchased, and they purchased hundreds of thousands, millions of these mortgages. Okay, that when the recession hits, these people are not going to be able to pay their mortgages, and these mortgages are going to go default. And once the mortgage go default, the shadow bank go default. Once the shadow banks default, family, they already low-key bailed out the banks with $75 billion. So what you think is going to happen, okay, when it really hit the fan? Because see, right now, the stock market is propped up on company buybacks. Auto loans that are at auto loan defaults at an all-time high. Okay, it's been 10 years. It's been the longest boom market in the history of the stock market. And remember, it's all cyclical. What goes up comes down. This is going to be another global economic catastrophe. But guess what? If you're paying yourself first, stacking your chips, doing your research on dividend stocks, on real estate, especially real estate, because you need something that's tangible. And you're talking passive income, real estate is a great way to do that. And remember, get your credit tight so you get your money right, and don't sleep on good debt. Don't be afraid to get that good debt. All right, because when the market crashes, if you don't have all the capital necessary, then like I say, if your credit right, then you go ahead and get that loan and get good debt. Because who you think is benefiting right now from these negative interest rates around the world? And the Federal Reserve just lowered interest rates a couple of weeks ago by 25 basis points. Who do you think benefits from that? Billionaires, the wealthy, because guess what they can do? They can go and take 50 million, 10 million, or whatever, and go get a loan, right? Collateralize that loan, and then guess what? Bam, go get more assets. At such low rates, they can afford it. Okay? See, I think it's a tough situation when you have to go get those payday loans, and they robbing you blind with 28, 38% interest. You go get a $200 loan, but you're paying them back $320. And then so you get behind that 8 ball, and it's tough to get off. You dig? So like I said, friend, make sure you stay conscious of your credit. I do want to remember to tell you or reiterate about Credit Karma. If you haven't had an opportunity to check out Credit Karma, check out Credit Karma, because you will have access to TransUnion and Equifax. And they do, no, it's Equifax or Experian? No, it's Equifax. Equifax and Experian and TransUnion, they do have monthly credit updates, and you will have access to all your accounts that you have on your credit scores. Now with Experian, that's a different one. And I think every year you can get a free credit report. If you go to annualfreecreditreport.com, you can get a free credit report, which gives you all of them. But I think with Equifax right now, they in some type of litigation process when they gave up all the information, which to me, come on, man, all of them doing it. Google, Facebook, all of them, YouTube, all of them. They got the information. So, I mean, if you're afraid of it, if you're afraid of your information being stolen and sold, too late. You have a social security number. Okay. Once the social security cards came into fruition, uh, everyone has been tracked. Your name is not your brand. Your brand is those 9 digits. That's why every time somebody call you, they want those last 4 digits. You did? So don't worry about that kind of stuff. Protect yourself, of course. Okay. But in this age of digital uh, information being, you know, given all over the place, it's hard to protect it. Because remember, those that are hacking it are the ones that are giving it to us. You know, if Google say they've been hacked, Google hacked us. You did? If Facebook say they was hacked, Facebook hacked us. You just have to be conscious and be aware of what's going on. Marshawn, what it do? Okay? And I said, I agree with you. They don't care. Because, but hold up, they do care. Remember, we're not in a democratic republic. This isn't a democracy. If your third eye is open, you're conscious of that. This is what they call oligarchical collectivism economy / government. But what does that mean? Oligarchy is the really, really rich, wealthy. Okay. Collectivism is them coming up with certain doctrines and certain things that they want the group to follow collectively as a group, and they give it to us. Now, when you give the public bread and circus, you know, NFL, entertainers, Kardashians, social media, have them working 40 hours and 60 hours a week, you know, have tuition and college rates go up so much, so now they got to work even more. Have Social Security not be enough to survive on when you get older. Okay. Have public education not really accommodate all students. So when you have all this going on, it's easy to have a type of government like an oligarchical collectivism type of government. Because what's going to happen? Once you get out of the rat race of working and school and all that kind of stuff, what do? You come home, you're not trying to figure out what the marginal tax rate is or figuring out ways to become an entrepreneur because being an employee is just not going to get it because you're conscious of the fact that Social Security is not going to be enough for you when you get older, especially when they're telling you right now that Social Security may not be there. So playing the video games, you know, watching, you know, sports all day, or reality TV, which is not reality at all. These are all things that they know, guys. Sigmund Freud's nephew named Edward Bernays. He was the one that came up with the whole idea of propagandizing commercialized products to get the public to buy them and have this be their religion. See, a lot of people think the religion is based on, you know, what they think is religion. But what they don't understand is the religion in America is consumerism. And that's why they can give you an iPhone 1 year, and 10 years later say it's an iPhone 10, and you believe it and go spend more money than you did on the iPhone 1. I says, what it do? Okay, no doubt. Appreciate that, Marshawn. You did? So just understand the cognitive dissonance and understand that, you know, until we all get out of this notion of consumerism and being brainwashed, they got us in the bag. And that's why they can have a tax rate topped off at 38%, where if you make anything over $400,000, it's still only 38%. So let's say you make $400,000 and $10. That $10 is taxed 38%. But somebody that made $18 million is still just taxed at 38%. So your little extra $100 or $1,000 over $400,000 is taxed at 38%. Why that 20 million or 30 million that the CEO got, okay? Because his people that convinced the masses to buy all this product, which in turn boosted up his 20 to $30 million bonus, while the employees that are working still making minimum wage. You did? So just a little food for thought, fam. I just want to come back with a little information. Remember, the marginal tax rate is kind of tricky. It ain't what you think it is. If you're just not joining me, I did hit on the Amber Guyger situation, which was the Caucasian cop. With her race doesn't matter. You did. The fact that you say you go into someone else's apartment that you thought was yours and you shoot someone and kill him, to me is ridiculous in itself. And so that's something I think is a lot more to that. I think maybe there's some predictive programming to the masses on the gun control issue. Because remember, that's been something that they've been trying to push, the gun control. And also, too, it could be a situation where, you know, like I said, my doors are locked. I don't anticipate somebody coming into the crib and accidentally thinking it's their apartment or thinking it's their place and shooting me. I don't anticipate that. So I think that's kind of crazy. You know, this is a cop that was cognitive. This was a cop that was, you know, oh, I thought it was my apartment. That just don't fly. Like I say, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, you know, individuals were being killed, were being hung, were being imprisoned on lies. And so, you know, just something to think about. Like I say, family, so I'm going to get up on out of God. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back again, but make sure you do your research on the tax rate. Some of younger audience, it's never too early to learn about the tax rate. FICA, okay? And all FICA is the Federal Insurance Compensation Tax Act. I have to go back. I got to go back, but it's FICA, and all it is your Social Security taxes and your Medicare taxes, which I'm not a big advocate of because I don't understand why the government will top off Social Security at 6% or 7%. When you guys that are young, you can work at 20 and actually put more into Social Security. But you know why they did that? Because they knew it wasn't going to be there. And I just don't understand that, because if you have so much money going into a certain account and we base our economy off of investing, then shouldn't that money, all the money that's invested in or that's contributed to the Social Security, that should be invested in different investment tools. So basically, those that are 65 and older, the contributions to them should be basically just interest and dividends and capital gains alone. How are you going to tell me that if you have all these billions of dollars in Social Security, who's the person over the Social Security? Who's the U.S. Treasury? Because he needs more economic skills, because if I'm sitting on all these billions of dollars that people are contributing to me, and it's my responsibility to disperse it all to the people that deserve it, then what I'm going to do with these billions of dollars is, okay, hey, I'm going to make sure that I'm not just going to have this money just sitting in the account and just dispersing out, because guess what? It will eventually run out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invest this money, because I have all the greatest economic minds around me, and invest this money so all the capital gains and all the interest that I get back, that will be that I pay out with disbursement, so that way I'll make sure that I never run out. Family, come on. I graduated from Rice with a business degree, but I'm not an economist. But this, come on, man, this common sense. Okay? So, family, make sure you pay yourself first. Get ready for the financial crash, because when it happens, you want to make sure you're in a great situation, capital-wise, to take advantage of it, because it's going to be a great opportunity for you. I promise you right now, there's going to be a huge shift in wealth. a transfer of wealth, and you want to make sure that you on the receiving end and not on the bad end, because when you know that there's $4 trillion in debt and consumer spending, whether it's credit cards, auto loans, mortgages, then that tells you that eventually it's going to bust, because these rates are not going to stay this low forever. When they start raising interest rates, that's when it's going to crash. And the only people right now that are benefiting from these low interest rates are the wealthy, really, really wealthy. And if you just join me, family, like I say, do you think the tax rate is fair? I can say this. What's her name? AOC Cortez Ocasio-Cortez. She's a congresswoman, and she also proposed that the tax rate be increased to 70% or 60% to the rich, for the rich. Now, how did they spend it on the television? They automatically said, oh, they're going to take 70% of the richest money. Well, that's not even true. All she basically suggested or proposed was to tax monies over $10 million. So anything over $10 million, okay, will be taxed 70%. So if you made 10 million and 100,000, that's taxed 70%. Or if you made 20 million over the 10 million, that's taxed 70%. And the people thought that was not fair. But like I said, do you really care about the less fortunate or no? Do you care about the many veterans that fought for this country, that come back to this country with PTSD, that are homeless, the senior citizens that worked for all these American corporations for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and to be in a poverty environment, a situation right now? Do you care about the children that with more money from taxes they can be in a better situation? When you have kids in America right now hungry, family, when you have families living in tents, living in their cars, I'm just trying to understand it, because we're giving money to everybody else, billions of dollars to other countries. So why not take care of the ones that live here? You know why? Give them cake. Okay, they don't care. It's not an accident, family, that you have, 80% of the wealth in the hands of the top 1% in America. How that work? How do you go to sleep at night in California? You live in San Francisco, and you know that you have a whole community of homeless people living in tents, defecating all on the sidewalks, because it's bad in San Francisco right now, family. And in Los Angeles, you got Hollywood, you got Malibu, and you got Skid Row. So I'm just saying, I mean, maybe it's just my empathic spirit, but I just don't understand it. And so knowing that, I do what I can to make sure that the family in the garden understand, please get your financial literacy on taxes. When you buy a home or before you buy a home, look at what the county is saying the property value of that home is, and not what they say it's appraised for or what the market value is, because you're going to be paying taxes on that house. And you're not going to be paying taxes on the appraisal value, and you're not going to be paying taxes on the fair market value. You're going to be paying property taxes on the property value, which you only get that value from the county assessor's office or the tax county assessor's office. You did? So this financial literacy is something you want to make sure you digest and get that food for thought. Okay. Now I'm going to get on out of the garden, family. So I really appreciate you guys joining me. Like I said, in the meantime, between time, may the Most High Saudi bring you joy. And I'll be in the garden again this week. And being with is 95,000.